Hello guys, and welcome back to another video, and this is a very exciting video because I am starting to plant my garden for the 2023 season. So I'm going to be doing this over a couple of days, so it's all going to be sandwiched into one video, and so this will be the first official garden tour of the summer once I get everything outside. And so the reason I'm splitting this up is because it's overcast today, which is a really good time to transplant your seedlings, but it is quite windy. Tomorrow is not supposed to be near as windy and still a little bit cloudy. So I'm going to do my transplants then because they go into less of a contrast between being inside and outside. So if you've done your hardening off process and you pick a good day, you can actually really jumpstart your plant. And so while I'm gonna wait to put some of the taller transplants out, like my tall peppers and my tomato plants that have been waiting forever, I am going to direct seed the beans into the tower, some dill into the herb bed, and then also my little cucumbers, which are super small because they're not tall enough to really be taken by the wind. So I'm going to go ahead and put them out now so they get a little extra time to root in the soil, just because I didn't up-pot those and I want to get them in some soil with some more nutrition. So let's go do that now. Alright, so far we have started our first succession of spinach, radishes, and lettuce, which I only have the one lettuce, so I did plant some more here and also in the back just to try to see if a different area would go better for the lettuce. We started our beets, which are starting to come up finally. I think I have a couple volunteers that might be spinach from what was in this bed last year, from the previous people who lived here, but some of the beets are starting to come up. And then the only other thing we've done outside so far is the carrot bed, which I believe some of this is volunteer spinach, but our rows of carrots are starting to come up really nicely here, so I'm looking forward to that as well. So it's definitely a little bit breezier than what would be kind of ideal, but part of the reason why I'm wanting to get some of this stuff out into the garden bed today is because there's not enough sunlight to burn anything or really harshly basically be too hot for them right out the bat. And then the other thing is it's supposed to rain. So I'm going to wet the ground for anything that I'm direct sowing, and then the rain should hopefully help water it in. So I won't really have to bury it as much, and it should be really, really saturated, which should help with germination. So the first thing we're going to do is transplant some of the kohlrabi. Alright, so the two bean varieties I am growing is the Bush Provider bean and the Royal Burgundy. So the bush just means that it's a compact plant and it's not going to grow and vine like a cucumber would. It's just going to kind of stay compact, which is perfect for these tower gardening. So I'm just going to plant a mix of both throughout the tower. All right, so that is the tower planted. I did not purchase this tower, it came with the house, so I'm really excited to see how things grow in it. But I believe that is 56 bean plants in like about 2 square feet of space. So if you have a small backyard, you're just in a city or even in an apartment, one of these tower systems can be really, really great for growing a lot of food in very small spaces. All right, and last we have the cucumbers that I started. So I ended up not quite having enough dirt to fill up this bed, so it's actually half empty, which I'll show you guys after. And so because I have very limited bed space, I'm actually thinking I'm gonna try planting these cucumbers along this sidewall here because they'll be a little bit more protected from the wind when they're first getting started. But then also I'm gonna try to trellis them up and out of the bed so that the vines can kind of be free to vine around on the ground. It's mostly just moss with a little bit of grass, but very sandy soil. So I'm gonna see if they will grow just in the yard instead of taking up valuable bed space where I need the good soil for the other plants that I'm growing. So I have no clue if this is gonna work. It's one of those experimental things I'm trying for this year. But first things first, we have to get these into the garden. The wind is definitely picking up a little bit and it now smells like rain, so there's definitely some rainfall coming in, so I want to get these in and get inside before I get rained on. All right, so there we go. That's 11 cucumbers. I have a couple cauliflower. They're very weak seedlings, so I might just end up resowing some to plant. And then we're gonna head over and start some dill. All right, so we are over here at one of the garden boxes that was here last summer, and we actually have some chives already growing here. So I've just kind of decided to make this my herb box. So I have some dill, the Diana variety from Early Farm and Garden, and then I also have some Wild Rose Heritage Seeds Company dill that I'm gonna plant in here also if this doesn't take. So I want a lot of dill because I have quite a few cucumber plants, but I also can dry it and use it as dry spice throughout the winter. So I'm gonna go ahead and plant this whole package. Dill will reseed, so if you have a spot that you want it, it's usually easiest if you make it the dill spot for the remainder of the time you're gonna garden there. Otherwise it can be a little tricky to get rid of once you plant it, but since this bed doesn't have any other plants other than just being some herbs for us, I'm gonna go ahead and get a good patch going, and then hopefully it'll reseed itself and I won't have to plant any dill next year. So I'm kind of sowing this dill in two different ways. I'm going to have some rows where I actually cover up the seeds with the soil so they're actually buried. And then the rest in between those two, I'm kind of just sprinkling on top. So we'll see if just sprinkling them on top and watering them in has better germination, or if they do germinate better from being a little bit more buried in these two rows here. So I'm just going to cover these up and then give it a good watering. Alright, so that is everything for today for garden planting, but right after this clip we're going to get into the next day, which should hopefully be tomorrow, of planting out the tomatoes and the peppers. Alright you guys, welcome back to day 2 of planting the garden. As you can see, it is cloudy and it is much less windy from yesterday. There's still a bit of gusts coming in and out, but overall it's a much better day to transplant our starts. So now we are going to transplant the bell peppers, jalapenos, tomatoes, broccoli, cabbage, I think that's, oh, and the zucchini as well. So that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to start with the tomatoes and peppers. So part of the reason why I'm missing some soil from the garden bed in the back is because I decided to move my peppers and tomatoes into containers. Part of this is because I can put them here in front of the house where they're going to get a lot more sun compared to the back of the yard. When I originally built that garden bed, there was no leaves on the trees, and so it made it seem like it was going to get a lot more sun. So if you're able to map out your sun in your yard before you start installing garden boxes, I highly recommend, because it's going to be much easier on you. So we're going to have jalapenos there. We're going to do 2 per pot. Tomatoes here, 1 per pot, and then the bell peppers in those 3 pots, 2 per pot as well. So we're going to see how that goes. They might be a tiny bit cramped, but this is all the soil I have for this year, so we're just going to have to make do. Alright, so we have all of our jalapeno pepper seedlings. These look fantastic. I have never really been able to successfully grow pepper seedlings before, so to have them look this good right off the bat and they're already starting to split and form their buds, this is the best I've ever done, so I'm really, really happy with that. I think the reason is because instead of transplanting them into the smaller square pots that I did the tomatoes in, I put them straight into these larger pots, and the soil that I used is new potting soil with some fertilizer in it, so I really think that's what gave these guys such a strong start. But for now, I'm just going to place them out. We're going to do 2 per pot, and then we're going to get them out and planted. So if you're not doing your peppers in containers, peppers like to hold hands. They like to be fairly close to one another, so don't get too concerned with spacing them far enough apart. They don't like to be right beside each other, but you know, they like to be about a pot space apart so they can kind of help support each other. The other thing is, although tomato cages are sold as tomato cages, they actually make really, really good pepper support. So if you have a indeterminate tomato variety, you're actually probably better off using some sort of trellising system instead. Alright, and look at how great those roots are. So I'm just going to break them apart at the bottom, make sure nothing's twisting around. Just like that. And the mosquitoes are out in full force up here. I don't know if they're out where you guys are. And then I'm just giving these a nice pack down so that they're nice and supported and not going to go anywhere. And then we'll just repeat the process. Alright, that's all the jalapenos started. Now we're going to do the same thing with the bell peppers. Alright, so here we have our bell peppers, and if you'll notice, some of the leaves are starting to yellow and they're starting to look a little bit yellow on top. That's probably just from a nitrogen deficiency because they've been in these pots and I haven't fertilized them or given them any new soil. So I'm hoping that once we get them in this nice new fresh soil that they're going to perk up a little bit and lose that yellow color. But if I see it continuing, then it might be more of an overwatering thing and I'll just have to watch my watering. So usually the same sign on a plant can mean a variety of different things in terms of what's going on with it. But I suspect because they've been in these little containers since they were seedlings that it's probably just running out of nitrogen. If you still have a couple weeks before you have to put your seedlings out, like I would be at if it wasn't so warm up here, you could just fertilize. Ooh, yeah. So that one is pretty root bound, so we definitely want to stop those roots from curling around each other. So I'm just gonna kind of gently tease them apart here. And the roots are delicate, but you definitely don't have to be as gentle with them as you might think. So there we go, that's what we're looking for there, just that all the roots are hanging down so they're going to continue to grow down and into the soil and not wrap around the plant. There we go, all of our bell peppers are now planted, and these are the California Wonder variety from Early's Farm and Garden. The sun finally came out. So let's talk the tomato seedlings. So these are the small black pots that I was saying I didn't put the peppers in compared to what the peppers were in. And realistically, I probably should have put these guys into bigger pots, but I have two here that are just very sad tomato seedlings. This one got super leggy, and then it got damaged during the hardening off process. It either got too much wind or too much sun, and it doesn't look good. So instead of have this plant take up space, which it might still grow, but ultimately get top heavy and probably snap off, I'm just gonna go ahead and not plant this one. And then same with this one, I actually had snapped this one, but not fully off, and it is still growing and putting out more stuff, but it's gonna be the same as the other one, where once this starts to get really large and start producing fruit, the weight of that fruit is just gonna kill this plant anyways. So I'm not gonna worry about taking up flies. I'm not gonna worry about taking up my very limited garden space with tomatoes that ultimately are probably just gonna fail as soon as they set fruit anyways. Some of my other ones are a little bit more, they're still pretty tall and spindly. I didn't keep them close enough to the light once I transplanted them to these pots, but they're doing much better. They're much stronger. And because I have the tomato cages, I'll likely be able to support them, even if they start to get a little wobbly, but either just the cages themselves or some additional staking. So I am still gonna go ahead and plant these ones. And while I'm too short on my tomatoes that I wanted to plant, I have some extra cherry tomatoes that my husband loves that I'm going to plant in their place instead. All right, I think that's everything. I'm going to get planting these. The other fun thing with tomatoes is that if you want to pull off some of these lower leaves and plant it all the way up to here, this entire part will grow roots. Obviously, my pots are not quite deep enough to be able to do that, but I am going to be planting these very, very low and trying to get the soil to support as much of this stalk as possible. So that's a way that if you have a leggy seedling, you can actually recover from that a little bit when it comes to planting. The other thing you can do is you can plant them sideways, which is what I'm going to be doing with this one, which decided to fall over. So I'm actually going to bury it sideways like this and then have the tomato plant growing straight up from that. So those are a couple different methods you can plant tomatoes. If you feel like you're going to have drought, it's easier to plant them sideways just because they will be closer to the surface and they will get a little bit more water that way. All right, there are all the tomatoes planted. So this is what the garden bed is going to end up looking like. I am going to move the truck. I was just unloading the little extra dirt that I had. So we have our row of cucumbers, our cauliflower, and then the zucchini, and then we're going to have behind it the broccolini, and behind that the cabbage. All right, so that is everything in the garden bed. I'm gonna water it in. There are some cauliflower there, even though it looks empty, they're just really teeny tiny. And that worked out great. I basically had just enough space. If anything, I probably could have spaced out the cabbage a little bit more. We're gonna see how it grows. I wanna try to get things closely packed if possible. And that also means that we have one extra bed that we haven't used yet, one of the pre-existing ones. So that's also awesome because that means I get to sit down and think and figure out what I want to plant more of. So that is everything in the garden. I'm gonna take the phone off the tripod and do a quick kind of once over tour to go over everything in summation, and then we are gardening. So if you are liking this video, make sure to give it a like or a thumbs up down below, and also be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. Alright, so in front of the house we have our jalapeno peppers, our spinach, radish, and lettuce. We have our tomatoes, our bell peppers, the carrot bed, and then we have kohlrabi and beets. And then on the other side of the yard, we have our herb bed is that one. This one is empty, so that's the extra space we get to decide what to do with. And then we have the bean tower with the purple and green beans, and the half-filled in-ground garden bed with cucumbers, cauliflower, zucchini, broccolini, and cabbage, and an extra little bonus cherry tomato plant. Alright, so that is everything for the garden planting video of 2023. From now on, we'll be doing updates throughout the season to see how things grow up here in Zone 1, and also what we do with the harvest. So I hope you guys have a great day. We'll see you in the next video.